what's up YouTube? Welcome to today's video where I'm going to go over the mapping strategy I've been using in order to get all of the apothecaries that I've found. So we're going to go over the strat from the very start because there are some nuances to it. So as you can see here, I'm putting in the maps. Sextants are Beyond, 2 additional Abyss, Legion, Delirium, Faster. And then the Scarabs are Reliquary, Legion, Divination, and Abyss. Now I put in the map. Now as you can notice at the start of the map, I'm pretty much just running through everything. Now, the reason we want to run through everything is because we want to get to the boss without killing any mobs. And that's because killing the boss eliminates the chances that you can get the boss altar to spawn. So that means you have a higher chance of getting the player altar that gives you increased quant and rarity, duplicated divination cards, and duplicated currency. Now, the reason why this strategy is kind of sketchy is because you kind of have to know how this map works. And you do like a loop around, so you pretty much make a U all the way around. And then you get to the boss, and then you're able to kill it. Now, the boss will always be on a staircase going up, and you can see here, I just got jebaited. It's usually going towards this way, right? Oh, I found an enlightening card. That's pretty cool. And I did find an apothecary while running the strat, and I do have an excellence from this set. And I did do 20 maps. So right here, yeah, it goes stairway up, and then instead the boss room. Boss is kind of hard, but I'm just going to walk you over it. This build is not really the highest DPS build as I am running Magic Find in this test set. So keep that in mind when you look at my stats. So basically, make sure not to stay in the middle as the boss will spawn these laser beams of death. And it does take a while. I can just, oh, it's because I didn't have Corrupting Fever on, because I'm a moron. But you can see here, sometimes you die. But that's pretty much because I'm running Magic Find and I die. I think this map was a very bad demonstration, but as you can see, after you kill the boss, you can run through the map and then you will find altars that you can click on. And these altars will give you a certain amount of stuff like quant and rarity, currency duplication, divination duplication, or you can make eldritch minions drop scarabs or currency. But overall, the map should be pretty easy, especially if you're not running a Magic Find build. Now, I am running a very, very high Magic Find build, and this is 80% Delirium, so it's not exactly the easiest map in the world, but it really just depends on what build you're running. But I am able to leverage the explodes that I'm using in order to get as much loot as possible. And as you can see, most of the loot that comes out is literally scarabs. And scarabs are overall pretty easy to sell on TFT, allowing you to offload all of your stuff at once. Now, these are the div cards in question. If you do Defiled Cathedral, a lot of people ask me why Defiled Cathedral. And Defiled Cathedral has all of the same cards as Crimson Temple, but it has 2 cards, which are the Innocent, which is 40 Regrets, and it also has the Necrosis, which also gives you a Corrupted Blood Jewel. And as you can see, it has 7 years bad luck. And it also has the Enlighten, and it has the Dragon's Heart. And most importantly, it has the Apothecary. Now, this mapping strat is more about finding loot goblins than it is about finding divination cards. If you want to find divination cards, the ambush strategy will suit you a lot better with the enraged strong boxes. However, this strategy revolves around finding loot goblins and trying to get the big divine explosions. Because if you think about it like this, you get one of these explosions, it is pretty much the same thing as finding half an apothecary. And it is much, much more likely you find a currency god or loot goblin than it is that you find an apothecary. Finding an apothecary is kind of an annoying task. I've had people tell me they've done 300 maps total with enraged strongbox on Crimson Temple and they still haven't seen one. It is not that reliable to rely on it for consistent profit. However, loot goblins and currency goblins, they are a lot more consistent if you follow the strategy that I have set forth. Now, I did still do Defiled Cathedral because having the dopamine effect of the apothecary still matters a lot to me. As you can see here, I did find apothecary in 20 maps. That's not to say that you'll find one too. Now, the thing about this strategy is you could technically run it on a better map in terms of layout. You could also do Jungle Valley if you don't want to worry about killing the boss first. You could do Dunes if you want to get better Legion. But to me, Defiled Cathedral is still the best because you get the chances of getting some divination cards. Now, this is the $1 million question that people ask me over and over again on stream. And what is your Atlas tree? And this is my pretty much response for the Atlas tree. Now, the Atlas tree I have is running Wandering Path. What Wandering Path does is it makes it so your notables don't have any effect. And the effects of your small modifiers, so these travel nodes are double. So these are usually 1% quant nodes, and now they're 2%. These used to be 1 and 5%, and they're 2 and 10%. And then most importantly up here, these ones are 4% increase of non-modifiers instead of 2. and this actually adds a lot of quant and pack size to your maps. So that's why if you do a Wandering Path strategy, if you put in a map, say something like this will come out to like 180% quant and 50% pack size, because it pretty much just gives you an insane amount of quant and pack size compared to not using Wandering Path. Now, the benefit of using Wandering Path is if you look at the Abyss, and Abyss right here is the most important part of the strategy, Abyss's notables are not really that good. So you can see here, this is 50% increased monsters, which is good, but it doesn't really do that much, right? This is 1% chance to contain an Abyss. This one is pretty much just bad because it actually works on abyssal depths, and we don't want abyssal depths in the strategy. And this one is useless, and this one is not really that useful either. So if you can double these nodes, this one right here is already 15% more monsters, and this one's 15% more. So Wandering Path would already give you 30% increased monsters, and these nodes right here that are 30%, that's another 30% increased monsters on top. And not to mention, Wandering Path will give you 30% pack size. So Wandering Path is actually better to take than not having Wandering Path for the most important part of our strategy, which is the Abyss. Now, Abyss is super important because out of all of the currency gods that you get, I would say probably 80% of the monsters that are currency god touch are from Abyss. So that is why Wandering Path is so important. It allows us to have a better Abyss. It allows us to have more quantity and rarity and pack size on our maps, and it just helps us out a lot. Now, the problem with Wandering Path is the small notables aren't really that great outside of Abyss, so I've chosen stuff that adds as much league mechanics to the map as possible, and we have Harbinger right here, Harbinger, and then this one helps me open additional Strongbox. If there is a Strongbox that spawns, I did take some stuff here for Legion duplication. Now, these zones are pretty nice. It makes the Legion encounters last longer, so you can have an easier time of getting out all of the rare mobs. And this one right here, Influence Eater pack size. And this one makes it so it's more likely to be Legion, Templar, and Mariketh. And this one here is double amount of emblems and more chance to find a Legion. Now, here's some extra chance to get a Shrine. So overall, you can see these other small nodes are not really that big of a deal. Now, I did take these Beyond nodes because they do allow you to get more Beyond portals, which I did think was kind of nice because we are using a Beyond Sextant. And if you have any supplementary points, I would pretty much just put it into duplicate map drops, because maps are actually worth a good amount of money if you look at Excellence. And Defiled Cathedral does make up around like 133 chaos of the total amount of the profit. Now, next up, we want to go look at the Scarab and Sextants we'll be using. And for the Scarabs, it's pretty simple. We want to use Winged Abyss Scarab, Winged Divination, Winged Reliquary, and Polished Legion. The reason we want to use Winged Reliquary, even if you aren't Magic Find, is that Winged Reliquary allows you, when you find the Currency God Touch, to find more uniques. And the way the Currency God Touch works is that it converts the items to currency based on their rarity. So if you find more uniques, you'll find more Divine Orbs, you'll find more Exalted Orbs, and you'll find more Annulment Orbs. Winged Divination is pretty much used to get a higher chance at getting Apothecary and other cards. Winged Abyss is used to get as many Abysses as possible. And I do decide to use Polished Legion instead of Winged Legion. Winged Legion is definitely usable, but Polished is a lot cheaper. And it doesn't make it spawn a General. And the General is oftentimes very annoying, and it takes the spot of a rare mob that could potentially spawn. For the Sextants, we want to use Delirium Reward, Fill Faster, 2 additional Abyss, additional Legion, and Beyond. Now, the funny thing about Beyond is actually not that bad of a Sextant. It does give you some amount of currency if you look at it right here. If we look at the Tainted currency that we ended up getting, we did get some Tainted Orb of Fusings, a Tainted Chromatic Orb, Tainted Armor Scraps, Jewelers, Mythic, and Blacksmith Whetstone. So it does add up to be a little bit. If you add this all up, it's probably around 1 Divine, and buying the Sextant is not as much as 1 Divine. Now, more important than that, it does give a lot of monsters on the map. Sometimes Beyond actually completely pops off and you don't get a Beyond boss spawn the whole map. I'm not really sure what they changed about Beyond to do that, but it does help you get more Delirium rewards. Now, if you do this method, you should get around 16 to 17 Delirium rewards, and that should be very, very profitable if you're going to be using Skittering Deli Orbs. Now, for the map device, I did choose to go with Abyss since we can't really use Fortune Favors the Brave as we're Wandering Path. Now, a nice part about Abyss is, like I've said in the past, most of the God Touch are all from the Abyss, so we want to get as many Abysses as possible. And in terms of the master mission, you should use Einhar or Alva, depending on what you have. They're not really mandatory. I did try it out. I think Alva does give a little bit more rewards, but Einhar is honestly good enough and should still give you 16 to 17 roughly every single time. Now, next up, we want to look at how to roll the maps. Now, map rolling is kind of annoying with the strategy, and I'm not really 100% sure how useful this is, but this is just what someone told me, and I have tested it out a little bit, and it does seem like you get more God Touch. So what you want to do is you want to roll increased number of rare monsters on your map and exalt until you get 6 mods, and you just heard me right, I did say to exalt your maps. So exalted orbs aren't really that much. I think they're like 15 chaos or something. So on average, the map costs like what, 30 chaos, 35, 36 chaos if you have to exalt it twice. But half the time you don't need to exalt it twice because you do get 5 mods a lot and sometimes you even get 6 mods. And so the average cost of the map is probably around roughly like 25 chaos roughly in order to roll it. Now, the nice part about this is this actually allows us to increase our chances of finding God Touch from the map. This does make there be a lot more rare monsters on the map, and it also allows Abyss to spawn more rares, or I think so. And overall, this does make it so that we are finding a God Touch roughly every 1 in 2.5 to 3 maps. So it's not too bad at all, and I do think it pays for itself as soon as you find a God Touch that's currency or scarabs. Now, in order to sustain our money, we want to be using skittering, the diviners, or cartographers. I do think skittering is the best, but these other ones could also be good depending on how much they actually cost. Now, we want to make sure we're 60 to 80% Deli depending on the strength of our character. You should probably never ever do 100% Deli. 100% Deli is pretty much just too hard and not time efficient, as 4 times harder than 80% Deli. So if your character is kind of weak, do 60%. If it's not, you should do 80%. Now, this is a part that everyone is going to be asking about. So how much do you actually make from these maps on average? Now, these maps are designed to find loot goblins, but also be able to make it so that we're breaking even and making money even if we don't find loot goblins that often. Now, the reason we're able to make money is because the skittering delirium orbs provides us with scarabs to sell in bulk on a TFT or trade site. And as you can see here from the excellence, we do have a lot of scarabs. So if we type in scarabs, our total value is roughly 20 diviners or divines. And then in terms of how much the skitterings actually cost us, and this is a 20 map sample size. I did run 20 of these maps, and it's roughly 6 to 1 for skittering. So you can see here, just from running these maps alone, it's around like a 12 to 14 divine profit just from the scarabs alone from the skittering Deli orbs. And that way is not really that true. So 6 to 1, and then we're using 4 a map. So 20 times 40 is 80. So in order to get 80, we have to get 80 divided by 6. So 12. So it's like 8 divine profit, like 7 to 8 divines. I was wrong. So you can see that we still make money just from the skittering Deli orbs. Now this might change if this method is more popular and more people use skittering Deli orbs and cause the scarabs to go down in price. So we kind of want to monitor whether that is going to change depending on what happens, because I do know Grimro and Tuna potentially are also doing this method. Now, a lot of the profit is from the Apothecary. So the Apothecary, you don't really need to count it. And I did do the profit calculations without it, as finding 120 divines in 20 maps is probably unrealistic. Now, in terms of the divines that we got 29. I think we did end up getting 4 currency God Touch. And this could have been a lot more profitable because we actually found 6 currency God Touch, but I was unable to kill 2 of them because I ran out of portals because I was bad. And one of them was in a Legion, and I didn't spot it in time, and it had Soul Eater, so it literally just lived forever. So overall, this could be a lot more profitable. I would say each God Touch on average is probably 8 to 12 divines on average. So you could potentially add like 16 divines on top. Now, winged scarabs from Innocence Touch, you can see right here, we didn't get that lucky with winged scarabs. We actually found 0 winged scarabs, meaning we didn't find Innocence Touch at all. And you get some tainted currency from the Beyond Sextant, which is not really too much, as I said, but it is still positive money for how much you actually spend on the Beyond Sextant. And then you do have a lot of high value divination cards like Apothecary, 7 years bad luck, 7 years bad lucky, not luck, not lucky. Enlighten and Dragon's Heart. I actually wonder if you do it like this, if you can find it out. So if you could look at the divination cards, roughly, if you subtract this thing, I don't even know how you can get rid of certain things. Divination card. But in terms of divination cards, at the top, you can see Apothecary, Dragon's Heart, Enlightened, 7 years bad luck. And this does make up a good chunk of the profit. Well, once you get rid of the Apothecary. I think Apothecary is around 53 divines. Oh my goodness. So you can see that the divination cards are not that big of a chunk of the profit unless you find the Apothecary. And this is pretty much just an RNG gamble. In 20 maps, we did find 3 Dragon's Heart, but one of these was actually duplicated. 5 Enlightens and 2 7 years bad luck. So on average, I don't think you should be expecting to find an Apothecary within 20 maps. But I did calculate out everything, and I subtracted an Apothecary from the 20 map test, and it roughly comes out to around 8 to 12 divines per hour, depending on how many maps you run. And I do average around 5 maps an hour, which means you do a map every 12 minutes, which is really not that fast. You could probably pick up the pace, tighten up your loop filter a little bit, and be able to get more currency per hour. Now, I don't think the set was really that lucky. Finding 3 or 4 currency god touch is not really that crazy in 20 maps, but we'll see. I would have to run a lot more tests, and the best divine explosion in this one was 15 divines. For people who didn't see the previous videos, I did find one with 24 divines, and I have gotten one with 18 divines too, but in this set, the best one that I found was 15 divines. And I do think the divination cards was kind of unlucky. So overall, as I said, I found 4 or 5 currency god touch in 20 maps, or 3 currency god touch and 2 that ran away. And I did average around 1 god every 2.5 maps. But as you can see, 4 out of 9 times you'll get a good god. The other 5 times you'll get some bad maps or divination cards or some rarity increase thing. So it's really RNG sometimes. Sometimes you won't get a lot of good currency gods. Sometimes you'll get like 60-70% of currency gods. And then you have to consider the fact that sometimes the currency gets converted to exalted orbs and annuls instead of divines. So this strat is kind of high variance, but the skittering Deli orbs does help to even it out. Now, Defiled Cathedral, I do think is the best map if you want to find the Apothecary or gamble on divination cards. If you don't care to do that, Jungle Valley is really, really good because it's a lot easier to clear. I actually just recently learned that for Jungle Valley, you actually don't need to kill the map boss. You can pretty much just clear the map because the map boss doesn't count as spawned in, as it's above the map in its web or whatever. Kind of weird, but if you want to do another map that's a lot more chill, where it doesn't involve boss running, you can do Jungle Valley. Now, you do have to keep in mind that this method was done with Magic Find. So you probably want to find some ways to work some Magic Find into your build. So just for a little quick demonstration, I did look up Tuna's profile because I think Tuna did a pretty good job with trying to fit Magic Find in his build. So this is what people can do. And that will help you find the goblins and make them a lot more lucrative. And he has gotten actually a 21 Divine Explosion with this gear set. So what you can do is you can use Ventors, and this should be pretty easy to use on most builds. If you really want to do it, you can use Gold Worm, but he wants to use these boots in order to get ailment immunity. Sedemas is probably I wouldn't really use because the Eldritch Implicits are so good. You can use item rarity on your main gem link, or you can make a chest with item rarity socketed. And his helmet is another 45% increased rarity of items and a 20% rarity roll. So you can get a rarity roll on your helmet and craft on rarity as a suffix. Now, lastly, you can use a gold flask, which gives you 30% crafted rarity and 25% increased effect. I think all of this added together gets you around 300% rarity with very little investment, and that does help the loot goblin be a lot better when you do find it. So even without Magic Find, you can still profit from this method. But let me know down in the comments below if you've tried this out and what your best loot goblin has been. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalted Orbs, and Mage Bloods than me. And see you next time. Bye!